Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama. Thank you for joining me this week. And this week's episode is a catch-up episode. And I am talking with Emily from Wholesale In A Box. Now, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you might remember that I spoke with Emily last in 2018, where we talked about growing a wholesale business and how, as an Etsy seller, you can branch out into wholesale. Back then, Etsy was doing Etsy wholesale, but Emily had a different product and it was just more hands-on. And so we're going to talk about that again. She also runs One Mill School, which we'll dive into some more, which is new since our last conversation. So we're going to be catching up with Emily, or I'm going to be catching up with Emily, and hopefully you will learn something from our conversation and see if it's something that you're ready for. Emily, thank you so much for being my guest again, and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Ijama. I'm so glad to be here and glad to be catching up with you and your listeners.
Thank you. I can't believe that so much time has passed, because every once in a while, someone will ask about doing wholesale as an Etsy seller, and yours is a source of information that I would refer people to. And in my head, I feel like it wasn't that long ago we had our conversation, but it was about over 3 years ago now.
Yeah. No, I can't believe it's been 3 years, and it's been an interesting, it's been an action-packed 3 years for makers, I think, especially, I'd say overall, but especially in the world of wholesale, and then trying to adapt to COVID. As if you're in any way selling to stores, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for folks. So yeah, a lot has happened since we last talked.
Yes. And one of the things that has happened between then and now is that Etsy no longer supports Etsy Wholesale, which was a program that they used to do that offered sellers the ability to branch out into retail, but still use Etsy as a platform to do that. But you've always done it outside of the Etsy ecosystem. Can we talk about wholesaling and just what that looks like for an Etsy seller?
Yeah, sure. So, we see makers all the time who have built a really strong business, maybe primarily on Etsy from their line, and they've been hustling and getting their products out there and connecting with their customers. And often, folks will reach a point where they look around and they say, my goodness, this is not necessarily going to be sustainable for me in terms of my energy level, going to craft markets every weekend, and, perhaps financially for my family as well. And so a lot of people look around and say, I need to sell to stores. And then it's kind of like, okay, how do I do that? And, it's not as complicated as it seems. In some ways, selling to stores is very similar to selling to regular people, but it is a different set of challenges and opportunities in terms of learning how to find those stores, how to connect with them professionally, what's expected, and then getting organized with all of that and being effective at it. So that's been the focus of Wholesale in a Box since we started 6 years ago, is helping folks when they get to that stage of either I want to start wholesale or I want to grow my wholesale business, but I need help to do that. And then, everybody's different with wholesale. Some folks just want, 5 local stores that they're selling to complement their Etsy business. And then other people just keep growing and they end up with 100 or 200 independent shops all around the country that they're selling to. And then still other people go to an even further extreme and end up selling to, really large nationwide stores. Our focus has been helping people either start wholesale or grow wholesale with independent shops, which is a little bit easier to get your way into because the process of interacting with just a person, a store owner who owns a single store is much different than trying to pitch to Anthropologie, for instance.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the lay of the land. And it's, again, you can start really small and then you can grow it as big as you want, depending what your focus is.
What would you say the wholesale scene looks like now, post-COVID, post the pandemic, where a lot of independent stores and independent shop owners weren't able to keep their doors open? How have you seen that has affected those stores, but also conversely, makers who might be on the cusp of branching out?
Yeah. So it's been a wild ride. There have been a lot of ups and downs. This time last year, none of us knew what was going to happen, and everybody was feeling really, really cautious. We didn't know what was going to happen with the economy. We didn't know if stores were going to be able to stay open at all. I would say I have been so inspired by the ingenuity of store owners. So many people have found ways of creating, a hybrid online and in-person model and reaching their customers and telling their story regardless of whatever lockdown measures were in place. And so a lot of stores really did make it through, and some stores made it through stronger than ever. Absolutely, some closed, some incredible stores closed, some real pillars of their communities, which is really sad. But I look around now where we are in 2021, and there is still a strong, thriving, growing independent retail scene. I would say in terms of how it has affected makers, it has affected makers unevenly, so for some makers, their wholesale dried up completely, depending on what their product was, who they were, what geographies they were focusing on. And for some makers, they got a huge amount of wholesale orders. It's something, maybe it was a product that people were especially looking for during the pandemic. Maybe it was something about their storytelling that was compelling to store owners during that time. And so I think in terms of where we're at right now, store owners want unique products to sell in their store. They want things to get people in the door, whether those are virtual doors or physical doors. And they are being even more picky and thoughtful about what those things are. I would say they're a little less willing to take risks, but they also are looking for those things that are going to be special and interesting to their customers. So things have shifted, and I think you do have to be especially thoughtful as a maker in order to succeed at wholesale right now, but it's absolutely possible.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I think we don't always hear that things could be better now than they were before, or that it's still viable. And so is this where Wholesale in a Box comes in? And for anyone who perhaps hasn't listened to our previous conversation, which I will link to in this episode, but I think because we're here now today, you have more up-to-date information. Can you tell or remind us what exactly Wholesale in a Box does and who it's for?
Yeah. So Wholesale in a Box helps makers get their products into more stores. And we help them do that in a way that is based on relationships and in a way that is authentic to makers and keeping the relationships in your hands. And so for a long time, the way we did that was with a subscription service where you'd sign up with us, and for the monthly fee, you would get three things. The first thing that you would get is 20 stores per month that we would handpick for you to recommend to you that you could reach out to and pitch your line to. The second thing was access to an app, an online system to stay really organized with outreach that we would preload with all of your outreach tasks so that you could stay super efficient as you reached out to stores and follow up. And then the third piece was wholesale coaching and support, so that you could be effective, with your line sheet, with your wholesale terms, and with that connection to stores. Just recently, so last week, we announced a really big change at Wholesale in a Box, the biggest change since we started, which is that we are moving away from that subscription model, and we are moving towards a training and coaching focused model. It's still really, really affordable, but what we're honestly doing is taking everything that we have learned about growing wholesale as a maker, cultivating relationships with stores that are really yours and really authentic and in your hands, protecting yourself as a maker, managing pricing, everything that we've learned about growing wholesale. And we're taking all of those methods, we're opening up all the doors, and putting them into a single wholesale course. And then you can choose whether to have just the course or to have the course plus coaching with us on your materials and stuff. And there's a couple reasons for that. One reason is that we have developed our approaches to such a degree that I feel really confident now, in a way that I didn't 6 years ago, that I can teach you, as a maker, to grow your wholesale business. And so I feel like it's a lot more straightforward for me now to say, these are the things that you need to do, and here are the questions you need to ask yourself, and here's the simple version of things, and here's the more sophisticated version, and really deliver that in a concise, effective way. The second thing is that, there are so many tools and platforms now today that did not exist even 3 years ago. Since the last time we talked, Etsy wholesale closed, but these other platforms like Fair and Tundra, Bulletin, Abound opened. And so the way it looks right now for a maker is that there are a lot of opportunities to use those platforms as tools, not to be dependent on them, but to really use them, take them into your own hands. And then what we want to teach people to do is say, how can you use those tools, and use those platforms, get on those platforms, but still take responsibility for cultivating real relationships with store owners. So that's kind of the method we're teaching and guiding people through with the new Wholesale in a Box.
How easy will it be for someone who wants to get into wholesale to find their way around Wholesale in a Box now on their own, if they just do the course versus getting one-on-one help or coaching from you?
Well, I will say, okay, so the course itself is $179. And the version with the coaching is only $297. So it's like $100 more for 3 months of email-based coaching. But we do really rich email-based coaching where we'll send you videos, we'll do in-depth reviews, and go back and forth with you as much as you want. So I have to say, if I were talking to my sister, I would say, honestly, the coaching version is a very good deal. So I do think that's a great option if you have the resources. If you don't, and you are a person that is on top of it and you can run with things, all of the information will be there, and we will make it very simple and very straightforward. So you can absolutely go from step A to step Z in a week, easily do what you need to do and get started, or grow your wholesale without the coaching, for sure.
Okay, good to know. Now, has the support team changed in any way? Will folks still have access to you, or do you now have new people or more people that will be providing support? Because I know when we spoke the last time, you were very hands-on involved in I am still hands-on and involved. When I started this business, I did not know how long I was going to be able to stay really hands-on with our makers for, because everybody tells you that you can't do it at a certain point. But I mean, honestly, I've found that many times folks don't need me. They have our materials, they have our training, they're good to go. But when they do need me and they do want to talk one-on-one and they have a particular question that isn't covered,
I have found it so helpful just to be there. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a 15-minute call. It's no big deal. So I'm still hands-on. So
Okay.
that's, it's still, the email coaching is still access to me. We do have a support team and they help me stay efficient with that and
Yeah.
support me with staying on top of all the details there. But I'm really thrilled that I've been able to keep working one-on-one with makers even as we grow.
Okay, good. And I think that makes a difference. And the reason I ask that is because um sometimes as businesses grow, as you probably know, the farther the person whose brainchild it was gets from it, it
Yeah.
changes a bit and the
Yes.
experience is not quite the same. And so that was
No.
why I was asking.
I know. Right. And it's something, right. Yes. I know what you mean.
Now, who would you say is an ideal client for Wholesale in a Box? Who should be considering it?
I think there are two types of makers that should consider it. The first type is someone who has a great product. They are passionate about what they do. They've gotten a great response, say at craft markets or on Etsy, and they want to get their work into stores, but they're brand new at it. They really don't even know where to start, or they just have a couple shops that they're selling to. We can help them go from 0 to 10 stores they're selling to 30 stores they're selling to, efficiently and in a straightforward way. So that's one person that I think is really good for it. The second person I think it's really good for, and we've organized the course so that it's really into two pieces rather than having a basic course and a pro course. We have it all in one comprehensive course with the idea that we want it to be a resource you can come back to over time. So if you're a more pro person, I also think that Wholesale in a Box is really strong for you to help you build and cultivate reorders, to help you get super efficient and super fast with outreach to both new store owners and existing store owners. So building real systems to help you scale wholesale. So the way we've set the course up is that if you're a person who's just starting out, it's very strong for you, and you'll ignore a chunk of it that's more for pro makers, but come back to that later when you're ready for it. And then if you're a more pro maker, you may take a quick look at some of the basic stuffs and then move right on to the pro stuff. So I think it can work either way, and we're making sure to have it be quite easy to jump around in it and use it in the way that fits best to support you for the things that you actually need.
Okay. So once someone makes that purchase, they have access to all the information indefinitely.
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Now, something else you're doing, which is new, is One Mill School. This did not exist back in 2018. So, what is One Mill School all about?
Yeah, well, okay, so One Mill School came, over the last couple of years. We had noticed that there were so many makers who we were supporting with Wholesale in a Box, but they had a lot of other opportunities and challenges in their business. Maybe they were struggling with storytelling or hiring or getting their finances in line. And, you know, there's information out there, but sometimes information isn't exactly what we need. What we need is guidance. We need help asking the right questions and finding the right answers for our own unique business. And we need a sense of community and of other examples of how to overcome certain challenges or how to take on certain opportunities. So One Mill School tries to do that. It's a quarterly school. So we have applications open all the time. But then we start at the turn of each quarter. And each quarter you get a few things. One is that you get to select a course on everything from hiring to storytelling to email marketing. You get access to a really high level community of other business owners like you. And you also, again, that one-on-one piece, you get a one-on-one coaching session with me each quarter, alongside email coaching whenever you need it. So, and it's only, I mean, I know I'm biased, but it's $200 per quarter. So it's just about $70 a month, which I think, if you think about investing $800 in your business over the span of a whole year, I think it's a really smart way to do that, because it's not just about someone telling you, do these certain sets of things and you'll get these results, which I don't believe in. Everybody has such a unique situation.
Right.
Rather, making this community driven training space for you to really lean into your business, ask the right questions, and find the answers that really make sense for you. So, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about One Mill School. I think it's been working really beautifully for the people that are in it. But and with I just want to say, Ijama, too, for anybody that's curious about either program, Wholesale in a Box or One Mill School, or they're just trying to find their footing and figure out generally what their right next step is, feel free to reach out. Like, our team is an open book. So if you reach out to us, we're at team@wholesaleinabox.com. If you reach out to us and say, here's where I'm at, like, do you think either or both of your programs would be a good fit? We will be absolutely honest and tell you. So we're happy to have those conversations with people too.
Okay. Good. Thank you so much, Emily. That's really helpful.
Okay.
Now, just to make sure I understand the structure of One Mill School. So it's kind of like a college where each quarter you pick what you want to study. Do you
Yes.
get to pick only one thing, or can you pick multiple things or multiple topics, I should say, to
Yeah.
cover over the course of that quarter?
We have you pick one thing.
Okay.
So what's interesting about One Mill School is it's more of a quality situation than a quantity situation. We think of our quarter in 3 months. So the first month is where you take that course. You pick one course and we work with you together to pick the best course for where you're at in your business. So the first quarter is about exploration, exploring what's in that course. I mean, the first month of the quarter. The second month of the quarter is about developing. So asking questions about the information, maybe having that coaching session to develop the ideas from there. Second month is about developing. And then the third month is about implementing. And so that's where you start to say, okay, here's what I learned. Here's how I developed that plan. And then here's how I'm going to make it real in my business. And we also have a program called Experts and Tools where you can, it's a cadre of vetted, trusted, unsponsored professionals that we don't get a kickback from at all, but they have very transparent, accessible offerings, on online marketing, or I need help implementing, email flows in my business, or, just actually getting down to the very detailed implementation that third month. So that's kind of the flow of it. And then it starts again the next quarter and you get to choose your next topic that you're really going to delve into. So we tried to make it so it's less about just having access to a lot of information and more about really making that, making it real in the work that you're doing.
This is so intriguing to me because it sounds so different from a lot of educational and course offerings that are out there right now, in that, a lot of times, like you said, you'll get something, you'll pay for a course and you get everything all at once. And going through it yourself, you have to be, one, really motivated to want the end goal, because, somewhere along the line, most people stop. They don't get all the way to the end.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the way I'm picturing this is, so let's say I decide this quarter I want to focus on storytelling. That's for the next 3 months. All we're going to focus on is me learning how to tell my business story or finances or whatever I pick.
Yes.
do we meet physically like once a week or something with the other students, like a classroom setting, or do you send out modules of tasks or information that we go through and then come back with questions?
Within the course?
Mm-hmm.
Within the course, the courses are set up to run over 3 weeks. So over the course of 3 weeks, we'll email you and say, hey, Jama, this is what you need to work on this week for your storytelling course.
Okay.
We're available for questions. When you get through that section, post this part of it in the community, and all the other students doing storytelling are going to do the same. So you'll get to see all the other examples of what they worked on for that chunk. Same for week 2, same for week 3. And then, of course, we're available for questions as they come up over the course of the quarter. But there's kind of that intensive 3-week period where we're moving through it together.
Oh, I like that. Now, do you cap the number of students you take in each class?
So far, we have just been taking it slow and seeing, how it's been. We haven't been capping it, but it is applications based. So we do make sure with each round of applicants that it is a good fit based on the application, that the students' expectations are aligned with what we actually do and what we're good at, and that we are accepting just the number of students that we need, that we're able to serve in this more intensive kind of way. I'll also say, just one side note, we do have a scholarship program as well. So I think our scholarship program is very cool because we are not choosing the scholarships. We have a scholarship fund, and it is first come, first served for scholarships based on your identification of whether you are facing significant systemic barriers to you growing your business. And this might be because of race, it might be because of situational things in your life, all of the reasons that people face more barriers than other people, right? So that's been a really powerful way to make sure and say, this is important, this is business support that I want everyone to have, and that's how we're making that real for as many people as we can.
Wow, Emily, that's so fantastic, because I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't think many people realize the barriers some other people face when going into business.
It's not all equal. It's hard for everybody, but it's harder for some people than others.
Yes. And I so appreciate that you realize that, and that you appreciate that, and that you've worked something into your system to accommodate that, because it's so important. And sometimes it's hard to explain to people that there are barriers for some people, that it's not always an equal playing field. And so I really genuinely appreciate you actually saying that you offer this. So important. And so there's an application process, and I assume not everyone gets accepted, not for any negative reasons, but just because not everyone might be a particular fit for a particular course at a particular time.
Right.
Okay. Will you make referrals for people? Let's say they want to do something, but in your assessment, they're not at that stage yet. Will you sometimes refer people to an alternative course that, or maybe a different class that's going on that session that they might be better suited for?
We'll try. If we know of something that would be a better fit for what they're trying to do or the stage that they're at, we'll always try to refer people to other resources. We also try to offer a lot of free resources. So for Wholesale in a Box, we have a training center that people have told us, they said, I never signed up with you as a customer, but I got an entire wholesale education from your free resources, which I'm thrilled about. I think that's cool. And same for One Mill School. We're still newer at that for One Mill School, but trying to build it up. So that's another piece, is that, even if we're not able to take someone on, that hopefully we're able to provide value to them over time for free.
Oh, wonderful. So how does registration work? When are the registration periods, and what can folks do if registration is not open at, at the time they're looking?
Yes. Okay. So, for Wholesale in a Box, it is instant. So you sign up and you're good to go. You'll have your course, and your coaching will start immediately too if you opt into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
For One Mill School, it's more of a school model. And so we work on a quarterly basis, like I said. So the quarters start January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st. But we are taking applications all the time. So if you're interested,
Okay.
the application takes 5 to 7 minutes. So I would say go on to onemillschool.com, fill out the application, and then we'll let you know as the quarter approaches, if we're able to move forward. And then, obviously you haven't made any commitment until that point, and then you can decide for sure whether you're moving forward or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how that works.
Okay. And then at the end of each quarter, do students get to stay in contact with each other or the school, or it's like real school where at the end of the semester you're done?
Yeah, well, okay, so it's actually an ongoing membership, which makes it a little bit different from a school.
Okay.
But almost all of our members have stayed with us quarter to quarter since we started last October. Because, there's every quarter we add new courses, we add new parts of the program, and so it just keeps getting better, and there's more things to learn. So you don't have to stay with us longer than a quarter, but if you want to stay, it will kind of default to you just sticking with us for the next quarter. Um,
Okay.
if you don't, then yes, then you wouldn't have access to that information or the other students moving forward. But if you do stay, the other advantage is that you have access to all your old courses as well. So if you were to get a little behind or something like that,
Yeah.
no problem. You can just go back to those resources,
Okay.
when you have the time to do it.
Okay. And as far as the community, does it take place on Facebook or outside of Facebook? Because I know not
Outside of
everyone is.
Facebook.
I'm sorry?
Outside of Facebook.
Great. And I kind of ask that for selfish reasons because I don't really do Facebook. And so anytime I want to enroll in a course and they're like, and it comes with a free Facebook group, I'm like, oh man.
I know. Yes. Me too. Absolutely.
Nice.
It's all integrated, so you only have to log in one place, and you'll have your courses and access to the coaching and access to the community all in one portal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's simple, but you're not getting down the rabbit hole of Facebook, and you're not dealing with all of the privacy issues and that kind of thing that come with Facebook also.
Yeah. Now, the people who listen to this podcast fall into different categories. Some are handmade makers where they actually make and create what they sell.
Mm-hmm.
Some are vintage sellers where they specialize in a particular type of product or vintage items, and that's what they sell. And then some sell supplies.
Yeah.
Do One Mill School courses also apply to people who aren't makers in the traditional sense?
Yes. So Wholesale in a Box is very focused on makers, not necessarily that you have to make everything, but that you're really the designer and mastermind behind the product.
Okay.
One Mill School is much broader. So it's for creative small business owners, which I define as somebody who started a business based on a passion, and now wants to grow it. And so that could be any of those three groups of people for sure, plus others. It's not only handmade focused lines or vintage focused lines, but as we grow, a little bit broader diversity of creative small business owners as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. So going forward, next steps, what's the next thing you would advise someone listening now to do in order to just move forward if they think they're at a point where they're ready to grow and do something?
Yeah. I mean, I think that taking a little time to get clear yourself about where you're at is always a helpful first step. So taking a few minutes to think about, what are the biggest challenges in my business right now? If I could do anything in my business in this next 6 months, what would it be? And what support do I need, or what are the missing pieces for me to be able to do that? And, if the thing that you want to do in your business is get your products into stores, Wholesale in a Box could be a great fit. If you are trying to grow and have challenges around specific aspects, or whether it's hiring or storytelling or online marketing or whatever it is, then One Mill School could be a good fit. Or maybe you're in a situation where you know what you're trying to do in the next 6 months and you don't need outside support. You're strong and you know what you need to do and you just need to do it. That's great too. I don't think we're always in a phase where we need that support or challenge or community or accountability. Sometimes we're okay on our own, and that's great.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I will definitely have links to Wholesale in a Box and One Mill School, so folks can go and check them out. I like that the URLs are so easy. You nail them. Wholesale in a Box is at wholesaleinabox.com, and One Mill School is at onemillschool.com. But if you happen to forget, I will have links in the show notes for this episode, so you can easily just jump over and check out, get more information. There's a lot more in-depth information. But Emily has shared so graciously all what these two programs are about, and I'm grateful for that. Emily, what's the best way folks can connect with you if they have more questions, and just need to think some things through first before making a decision?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Very open to that. Both websites have very clear contact information, very clear emails, and those come right straight to our team. And we'll get back to you within half of a business day, so just a few hours. The two emails are team@wholesaleinabox.com, and for One Mill School, it's hello@onemillschool.com. But again, you can find those on the websites if you don't have a pen and paper.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. And so I will have all that information in the show notes for this episode. Emily, thank you so much for this update. I'm so happy to learn about what you're doing and that you're just continuing to provide these valuable services to the maker community and to small businesses. And I'm glad that you made it through the pandemic and weathered that and came out strong. I hope it doesn't take another 3 years before we talk again.
No. No, me too. That sounds great. Thank you so much, Ijama. It's such a pleasure to talk to you again. And I hope that your listeners will find a nugget in there just to help them, tap into really what they're trying to do in their business and just take that little step back and say, what is my ideal, coming up, and what is the help that I need? And maybe we're a piece of that. Great. But even if we're not, I feel like asking those questions is so important. And maybe this conversation will give folks a little space to do that.
Yes. Thank you. And I'm glad that I get to introduce people to resources like what you offer. And, if now is the time that you're listening to this and now is when you need this, great. If it's not yet now, keep it in your back pocket and come back to it when the time is right for you. But at least now you know what's out there and what's available.
Yeah, that's perfect. That sounds great, Gemma. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome, Emily. And I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. I will be back with another episode next week. If you need to connect with me, you can go to convome.com, use the contact form there, or sometimes you can reach me on social media. I think Instagram is probably the best, at Etsy Conversations. And until next week, have a good one.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.